Welcome to Library-ish, the podcast that delves into libraries and librarianship within the context of culture and community. I'm Traci.
And I'm January. Today we're exploring a question that might seem simple, but opens the door to a world of history, innovation, and community impact. What the heck are public libraries?
First, we'll start with the basics. What exactly is a public library? We're going to explore the fascinating history of public libraries in the U.S., the vital work of the American Library Association, and how libraries have evolved to meet the needs of a changing world.
Finally, we'll break down the incredible services libraries offer today, from making information and technology accessible to fostering vibrant, connected communities.
So whether you're a library lover or just curious, stick around. This is the episode for you. Let's get started. So, as I said, we're going to start with the definition of what libraries are. I'm going to talk to you right here. What the heck is a library? What are libraries? Well, according to Merriam-Webster, the definition of a library is a nonprofit library, the definition of a public library, I will get this right, is a nonprofit library maintained for public use and usually supported in whole or in part by taxation. So go ahead, why don't you talk about what the Institute for Museum and Library Sciences says, because it's a little bit more detailed.
Institute for Museum and Library Sciences.
That's the definition right after. Or I can do it.
Okay. So a public library is established under state enabling laws to or regulations to serve a community, district, or region, and provides at least the following. So number one, an organized collection of printed or other library materials and a combination thereof. To paid staff. You know, it's nice to be paid for your job. It's nice to make money.
I mean, we love helping people, but it's good to get paid.
Yeah, I still need to eat. I'm so sorry. I need I need gas in my car. I need food in my belly.
Occasionally.
An established schedule in which services of the staff are available to the public. And we do that here. Oh my goodness. We have so many calendars and schedules. Oh, I'm off topic. The faculty is necessary to support such a collection, staff, and schedule, and is supported in whole or in part with public funds. Your tax money.
That's right. Your tax dollars at work, baby. So, as of May 2024, there are 17,278 public libraries in the United States.
That is a shocking number, isn't it? That shocked me, how little that is. I mean, when you think about how big the United States is, it's
Absolutely
huge. I mean, there's teeny tiny countries that could fit inside, 18th of Texas, and it's just,
well, look
huge.
At, like us and the European Union, they always talk about that Europeans don't necessarily understand when you come to this country and you think, oh, you're going to just like travel across. You're going to go Texas and you'll see California. And they don't recognize how actually geographically large the territory is.
We are a giant country. Yay for us. I mean, but still, we're a giant country. And people like, when you tell me from California, they're like, oh, you're from California? Then you must have been to blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, I really haven't.
I just saw a TikTok where a guy was saying, your friends are like coming to SoCal. They're driving into San Diego. They're flying into LA and they go, hey, yo, roll up, come and see me. And you're up in the Bay Area. And they think you're just going to like pop over.
Oh,
you know, you could just go to brunch together.
Oh, it's great.
And they don't recognize that that's like a 6-hour drive, a 7-hour drive.
Oh my gosh. Even better than that, I did a semester in London back when I was doing my undergrad.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I completely recommend it if anyone gets a chance. Anyway, I would tell people, oh, I'm from America. And they're like, no, really? And I said, yeah. We're like, well, where in America? And I said, oh, I'm from California. Oh, I have a friend over in Nevada. You must know him. And I'm like, I really mustn't. I'm so sorry.
I'm afraid you don't understand.
That's actually a very long ways away.
So, in short, 17,000 is not a big number.
It's teeny.
It's very teeny. But all of these institutions, public libraries, kind of operate the same way. And here's kind of an overview. So, most libraries in the US operate the same. There are definitely services that you can get at your local public library without having a membership card. Often that's Wi Fi access, public computers, printing services. However, if you want to get the full complement of what your local public library has to offer, getting a card is highly recommended. The rules for getting those cards can vary depending on the organization. Most of the time, you'll have to fill out a short application. You'll usually need to have a picture ID with you and often have to provide some sort of proof of address. Though that information can usually be found on any public library's website. A simple Google search should be able to bring you to that information and help you find out where the websites are for your local library. Different libraries will have different residency requirements, and some of them require you to be local, some don't. Again, this is something that you can find out on the library's website very easily. Once you have obtained a card, you're going to be able to use the full complement of whatever services your public library offers. That includes checking out books, often DVDs, music, audiobooks. It can include digital services like streaming movies, digital audiobooks, and ebooks. It just depends. The average checkout period for books tends to be around 3 weeks. This can vary by organization. And very often, if you would like an item that the library doesn't have, if it's your local branch that doesn't have it, it can usually be transferred from any other branches that may be in the same system as your library, or it can be obtained from another library out of the system. This is called an interlibrary loan. Libraries love to work together to be able to help get people materials that they want. And the majority of public libraries are set up to do this. In California, our library, the Butte County Library, and many others also have access to the ZIP program, which allows you to put in a purchase suggestion for a book. And if it meets certain criteria, we can send that book to your house. You keep it for a short period of time, and then we may even add that book to our collection, which is a great thing. Typically, in the US, library cards are free. There is no charge. If you lose your card, there may be a replacement fee for the card that can vary anywhere between $1 and $5, depending on the organization.
Yeah, and ours is amazing. We don't just have books. I mean, we've got, I mean, just the things, the library of things that we have that's
Well,
straight out of
that's the
Orville.
amazing thing too, is
Mhm.
being able to check out things aside from just books.
Right. I mean, it's just, it's a, I know you're giving the lovely people a general overview, but it's just when you delve into it, there's just so much. That one little card is just your key to endless entertainment, endless knowledge, endless learning, just so much fun, you know, but general, sorry.
Nope, that's very true.
Tangents are exciting.
So that's sort of what the public library does, right? So what's the history of the public library? Up until 1876, the term public library referred to any library that wasn't privately owned. And free public library referred to publicly funded libraries that are similar to what we have today. They're not exactly the same, but very similar. Basically, there were 3 sorts of libraries. There were school district libraries, which these were sort of a later development that came when public education started.
Mhm.
So that's where you get your school libraries from. But they created sort of the infrastructure and the foundation that allowed public libraries to become a thing because they were tax funded. And the 10 states that first opened the first school libraries created the sort of infrastructure that was used then to fund public libraries when the more modern model was developed. Social libraries are something that people tend to think of more. Social libraries were gentlemen's clubs. They were places where learned men of letters would go
Oh,
Those
those learned men.
Those learned men of
Yes,
letters.
yes.
They would have these. They would have collections that were basically like special
Mhm.
libraries that sort of focused on one area. So they might be interested in science. They might be interested in nature. They might be interested in philosophy.
Very nonfiction heavy. We're
Absolutely.
not
Well,
talking.
and they were
Yeah.
sort of academic adjacent. These
Mhm.
were people that were studying something or had a personal interest.
And
Like,
back in this day, those books were expensive. You
Yeah.
you had to have a lot of money to have your own. And this isn't like you could pop down to the local Barnes and Noble and be like, "Excuse me, good sir, I'd like your most recent novel on whatever is popular back then, making moonshine." Anyway, moving on. And one of the main
it's a
founders.
manual.
So one of the main founders of these was Benjamin Franklin, and he got together with a few of his buddies over in Philadelphia, and they all agreed that buying these books is very, very expensive. And they decided to put their money together and open this little library for them, this little club where they would have a number of these very expensive books that they all contributed to with these subscription fees that they had. And then they would all have access to that. But it was a very exclusive club. It was
The organization was called I think it's called the Hunto Club. It was more colloquially known as the Leather Apron Club, which anyone that knows Benjamin Franklin was a Mason, and leather aprons are associated with Masons. And the club, according to the Benjamin Franklin Historical Society, the club included tradesmen and artisans who met on Friday evenings to discuss morality, politics, and philosophy. So a bunch of Masons getting together to figure out how they were going to run things, basically.
And that sounds so proper and so put together. I'm sure that it was all very, very up and up.
Well, and you think about it, this was an organization, like many of them. It took money to belong. It took education. Not everybody knew how to read.
No,
These
it's not like it is today.
were a bunch of people talking about egalitarian and Enlightenment issues that were not necessarily. They were living the Enlightenment principles as best as they knew how.
Yeah. But it wasn't a free library. It wasn't open to anybody that wanted to come and use it. It was a subscription library where a particular person could pay a particular fine and they could have access to all these books. And it
was like Adobe Suite.
It was.
But for books.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It was like Microsoft 365.
but for books. Which back then were very precious. Back then they didn't have Google. Back then they didn't have, all the stuff. That's if you wanted to enlighten yourself in any way, that was it. You read the books for it, you apprenticed for your job, and this is their way of doing that.
And you think about like the difference between, and this is just a side note, you think about the difference between pamphlets, like Thomas Paine popularized, that were used to sort of spark the revolution. That's not what we're talking about. We're literally talking about like tomes, volumes, very academic. These were things that needed a lot of space.
Yeah.
They needed a lot of dedicated maintenance, just like libraries do today. And so keeping the interests narrow was also a way to keep the costs down.
Pamphlets are so fun because before the books were big things, it was pamphlets. Benjamin Franklin worked for multiple printing presses. One was owned by his big brother, and he was back as a teenager, he worked for this printing press, and they made pamphlets, and that was what went out. That was what sold, and that's what everybody read. Were just little, pamphlets. Because back then it wasn't as easy as pressing print on your computer. You had to set every single letter. You had to pull down.
Can you imagine how expensive it would be just to set up a press?
Oh my goodness.
Like, it's unbelievable.
That's why these books were so much. It took a lot of work to make these. And that's why they did this. I love Benjamin Franklin. He's one of my favorites because he was very smart and he was very charismatic and he was not humble in the least bit. He knew he was the Lord's gift to mankind. And their motto in particular was
and ladies gift.
Oh yes, he was a ladies man.
Ladies.
He knew it. He worked for his brother's printing press, and he left that one and he went to Philadelphia on his own. and he always talked about how he was a vegetarian because, meat was very expensive and vegetarians were just, healthier, until he decided he wasn't a vegetarian anymore and he decided to eat meat again. And anyway, that's a tangent. Anyway, their motto for this club, which was to pour forth benefits for the common good, is divine. I mean, come on. No, this man is not humble.
No.
Not in the
No.
least bit, which makes him so very interesting to study. But yeah, the books were hard to make, and they decided to put their money together and do this, which is not what our public library is now.
No, absolutely not. The other kind of library that was closer to what we have today as a public library was called a circulating library. And those essentially contained popular literature. They were open to the general public. They were usually attached to either a bookstore or a coffee house or interesting hat shops, which usually that's where women would go for books. They did not have what were considered the best books. They were very much looked down upon by people who read. It's a big argument that actually continued into the development of public libraries that sort of informed collection development. What should public libraries carry? How academic should they be? How populist should they be?
I love this argument.
And it's probably, in my notes, I say it's probably one of the earliest ways that libraries and librarians became pathologically self-focused, because this is one of the most self-focused professions that is anywhere. We really parse what we do, and that's kind of where it started. But the circulating libraries were definitely sort of the earliest cousin to what we have today.
I just love the content argument, the nonfiction and the increasing our intellectual value by reading nonfiction and sitting around in our own smugness and drinking our brandy and talking about how lovely we are.
Oh, yes. And then talking about how we can help the little people.
Oh yes, the little people. The little people are in so need of our assistance. It is so divine to put forth our resources together to help them. Flow. Yes, let's help the little people. Flow. And then you got the nonfiction, and then you have the novels. You have the novels, the fictionary novels that
Kate Chopin.
Oh gosh. The ones that they just consider trash because they're novels and fiction. And I'm just like, man, I just love that argument.
Yes. How can you read that garbage?
I know. And nowadays we look like, well, at least we're reading.
No, it's true. Although even today, there are some people that just don't like genre fiction. Yeah. There are some people, they have arguments against sci-fi versus fantasy, romance.
I love it all.
Just like the argument between audiobooks and books, what it really is reading. And this is like these debates continue.
They do. And it makes me so mad. It makes me mad because I used to be a teacher, as you know. And to teach little kids, when you're like, no, what you're reading isn't good enough. You want to make a child hate reading? Congratulations. That's exactly how you do it. You get a gold star for being a poo. We want people to read. We want people to, and it doesn't matter. We're in the YA section. You know how many of these books I've read? Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. We did our last podcast was YA. If you want to see that,
check it out.
Yeah,
please.
Zoom back.
Yeah.
But it's just, reading is a pleasure. And you don't need to inspect it and be like, what you're reading isn't good enough. It's not reading if you're doing it the way you're doing it. And it just makes me so mad. And my oldest daughter is dyslexic, and getting her to want to read is really hard. So when she wants to listen to a book, I'm like, excellent. We're ear reading today. Let's do this.
Let's go.
Yes. You want people to want to read. You want people to love to read.
It's so good for your brain. It
is.
Builds
just
empathy.
The action of it.
It's one of the best things we do as a species is write and read.
Yeah, and it's
participating is just so well worth it.
You know what I loved? I thought it was so beautiful. Back when I was in college, we would talk about the Greeks. The Greeks, the classics, the Greeks.
Yes.
And the thought of immortality. Back then, the only way to cement your immortality was to write things down, was to write a book, was to write everything down. Because after you're gone, it's still here, and even if we're talking about, flowers in the attic, you know what? It's still here. Decades after VC Andrews has passed and gone and gone, we still have flowers in the attic, and it's not an educational book. It's, in some strings, it's considered really, really questionable,
A little problematic.
Yeah, but it's still here, it's, and the act of reading it, even if it isn't, the philosophy of Boethius and all that fun stuff, even if it's not something like that, it's still getting your brain to
absolutely
do that stuff.
It's still exercising that muscle. So here's the thing: Boston Public Library, that was established in 1854, and it's essentially considered widely to be the first public library. And this is because even though there had been tax-funded libraries that had developed, this is again about the introspection, there is so much dialogue that occurred in the development of the infrastructure, the tax infrastructure that would fund this library, that it makes it sort of, everyone agrees, this is the first public library as we know it today.
Boston.
Yeah, in
Boston.
Boston. In Boston. Well, this was because obviously Boston had tons of libraries, social and circulating, all over. But there was a movement to consolidate the 7 main social libraries that existed. And when the local government heard about this movement, they thought, maybe this is a good time. Maybe we should consider having this consolidated system be a public system for the public good. If these groups are looking to get together, why don't we have the system funded with tax dollars so that the public can benefit from this good thing that's happening?
Seems like a lovely thought.
One of the reasons why it was felt that the public would benefit so much from having public access to books and literature and resources, printed resources, was because the immigrant population was growing. This was the beginning of the boom of the industrial age. And more people were coming over from Europe as industrialization crushed local artisans in Europe and sort of took their trade.
Which is so sad. I mean, I understand progress is progress and we have to move forward and everything, but that is so sad.
But it's like their livelihoods pretty much were ending because of this. So in many ways they were forced, if they wanted to continue, to come here.
Like someone that we know very well.
Yes.
Carnegie.
Yes, like Andrew Carnegie. It's a piece of history, which we'll be talking about obviously as well.
Sorry, I jumped in front.
No, that's foreshadowing. That's good. That's good.
Prepare yourself.
So because these immigrant populations were growing and they knew some of them were going to be allowed to vote, they wanted to be sure that they were educated. Essentially, that desire to have a population that was elevated through their access to information, regardless of what like the philosophical support behind that was, the philosophical reasons. That was the motivating factor, getting everyone up to more the same level so that as they're voting, as they're looking at legislation and whether, something is good, that there are these resources available to everyone. And so that was part of what made a public library a good thing to have. So that does bring us to one of the heroes of libraries, complicated though he was, Mr. Andrew Carnegie. Now, in Butte County here, Andrew Carnegie is a big deal because Butte County has a very special distinction of having 4 Carnegie libraries.
Oh, we're so lucky.
The buildings, all of which are still being used, not necessarily as libraries, but they're all still functioning, open. You can visit them. They're there.
We have to talk about Biggs. You have to visit Biggs. If you have not visited the Biggs Library, that's our oldest one, isn't it? 1908?
It was the first one.
Yeah, built in 1908, and it's a adorable.
It's pretty
If you do have the option, Biggs is only open at this moment in time as this podcast is being recorded, which we don't know. It might change. You know, everything's up in the air. But they're only open on Saturdays. What time do they open? Is it 10?
I think it's 10 to 5.
10 to 5 every Saturday. Head over to Biggs if you've got time and pop in. It's a piece of history that is still standing, and it's just so, so cute.
Absolutely. So getting one of these Carnegie grants was very difficult, which is why it's such a distinction that Butte County has 4 of these libraries. But really, like, who was Andrew Carnegie? We could talk about the fact that he was a steel magnate, that he was a robber baron, that he had all this money, richest man in the world, and the Carnegie Hall and the libraries and everything. But really, who was he? Well, actually, Andrew Carnegie was an immigrant from Scotland who came here at the age of 12 with his family. He came from a long line of hand weavers and the town he grew up in Scotland was actually famous for its damask linen. And just as we were saying earlier, industrialization took the rug out from under the industry in that town, and the industry had completely collapsed. So his family decided to come to Pennsylvania, which had become the hub of the textile industry during industrialization. And Andrew and his father got jobs at a cotton mill, and that was sort of his start. Between 1883 and 1929, Carnegie built over 1,687 public libraries in 1,412 communities across the U.S.
That's amazing.
Just in that short period of time with that grant. But the reason why libraries in particular were important to him was because when he was working in the cotton mill, he also got a job with a telegraph company as a messenger. He was introduced by his brother and a coworker named Mr. Phipps to a gentleman in their community named Colonel James Anderson. Colonel James Anderson was a local wealthy individual who had a social library. He had a personal library of 400 books.
That is amazing, especially for back then. We were just talking about how much work goes in to making one of those books, you know, and to have 400, that's impressive.
Absolutely. No, that was like an excellent sized library. And what this colonel did was he allowed working boys to come on Saturday afternoons, and they could check out one book, whatever they wanted out of the entire library. And this basically, Carnegie this is what he attributed his success to, was having access to all this literature, having access to all these books.
Oh, that's so very fortunate. Yeah. And you know, it's not an opportunity anybody got back then. I mean, not everybody, nobody got that.
No. And that's why, to him, he believed if there was one boy, obviously a boy, he believed
sorry, ladies.
You're not you. But he believed if there was one boy that could be positively influenced by having access to a library anywhere, that one boy could have a positive impact on the world, and that he wanted to be part of making that happen. And that was where the Carnegie Grant came from for libraries. The thing about the application process was it was actually very difficult to get the grant.
You had to prove that you could uphold it, right?
You had to prove that you had a source of continuous financing, and that there would be maintenance and people, that it wasn't just that become like a building full of books, like a warehouse. There had to be sustainability built into the grant proposal that you sent.
Right. Which, I mean, is smart. I mean, he's not just going around communities being like, I'm going to make it rain, you know? I mean, he wanted to make sure that his deposit was respected and was treated properly.
And that the community was going to benefit from this long term. The grant really was seed money. It wasn't meant to be, well, there you go, now you got a library, okay, open the doors, whatever. It was intended to be cultivated and maintained and nurtured over a long period of time. It was never meant to just be a one-stop deal. And interestingly enough, the librarian profession had been dominated by men up until the Carnegie Library, because it was women that were able to organize communities
Hey,
and
ladies.
organize the sustainability
Mhm.
that was required by the Carnegie grant for these communities, because a lot of communities had to turn down the grant because they couldn't arrange the sustainability feature.
Mhm.
So, but it was women largely in communities that made sure that the grant was going to work. And that was the road that women took to get into librarianship.
Mhm.
And that's where women
Yeah.
now dominate the
Yeah,
library
which, and
profession.
ironically enough, way back when they were doing that and they were slowly integrating women into the library profession, they paid them nowhere near as much as men.
Oh, no.
But it's noted that the women just felt so grateful for being employed in these lovely institutions of higher learning that it's okay that they didn't pay them nearly as much.
Yeah. Nah. No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
great.
Yeah,
Great,
that's great. Okay.
No, so I mean that's essentially it with Carnegie.
Mhm.
I mean, here's the thing about Carnegie and Butte County. We're really lucky to have those 4 libraries. What it mostly shows is that the people who were in this area during that time, our forefathers here and foremothers
Mhm.
in Butte County, were really dedicated to the community and dedicated to establishing an access point
Mhm.
for the community to literature, to learning.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that is a legacy that we need to be so proud of here,
Very
because
much
not
so.
every small community was able to arrange that or able to
Mm-mm.
sustain it.
And we have four Carnegie libraries. And that amazes me that we were able to do this 4 times. And it was that important to this community, our little old Butte County. It was that important for them to do this and succeed 4 different times.
That they saw the value in it then. I think that's so important.
Good job.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, ancestors.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to talk about the ALA, the American Library Association. Essentially, it was founded in 1876. It is the oldest and largest library association in the world. Predominantly, the goal of the organization has always been to create a standardization of services within public libraries, but libraries of all types. And it has become key in advocating for intellectual freedom and for equitable access to information, which is extremely important.
Yeah, it's the ALA is super important and it's really big, and it's got its very own Bill of Rights. It's got its very own list, just like our Bill of Rights here in the US of A, where we have, these are certain rights that you have as Americans. The ALA has a certain list of bills of rights that they have as a library, and they want to provide to libraries. They want libraries to uphold these rights. One of which is to provide a number of materials regardless of censorship. And that's one that every October, which is Banned Books Month, we take all of our books that a lot of, communities and a lot of populations have decided that they shouldn't have in libraries, and we put them right up front.
Well, and you'd be surprised. A lot of people think that people are asking for a book to be banned because there's some kind of salacious content. But very often it's just really bizarre reasons.
So sorry. How far can I roll my eyes back?
Very often that's not even the case. It's literally just because of like a conversation in a book. Or
an instance of real magic.
Yeah, like it's very interesting what can put a book on the challenged books list. And the ALA is definitely about advocating for libraries and advocating for librarians to preserve that access in the face of challenges that might take books off the shelf, when really that's a choice that the community should be making, the public should be making. It shouldn't be made by some board or some,
right,
shadow entity that has decided that you don't get to read something. That should be your choice.
It really should. I mean, come on, we're all adults. You're independent. You're intelligent. Why can't you choose your own reading material?
Absolutely. And so that's essentially the role of the ALA today, is to provide that kind of support, and to fight for things like net neutrality, which helps people be able to access whatever websites they want to access, whatever news, whatever information they want to access. And they support digital inclusion. And they're an advocate to Congress and to other governing bodies to protect what we have going forward in the 21st century and to help shape what libraries look like.
Well, and you got to figure, it's information. This is all about information. It's all about what constitutes the right information to present the public, and even you as a librarian, you're considered an information professional. I am not as of yet, but I mean,
you're on your way.
I'm on my way, but you're an information professional. You have a master's in information studies. That's all this is about is information. It's what information is appropriate, what information is not.
And that's the thing about the access piece, which is essentially when you talk about what libraries do, when we break down what they do, there are essentially three things we do. We provide access, we assist with technological and digital literacy, and then we facilitate community and cultural engagement. Those are the three core things that libraries do. And that access piece is the fundamental key piece, because that's where we give you an opportunity to choose for yourself what you'd like to see, what you'd like to read, how you want to engage with material, which is why we offer a variety of mediums.
You know what? Libraries are amazing, and we in particular are very amazing because because we do, our goal, oddly enough, is to connect with the public, is to connect information with the public, is to assist the public. We're here for you. I mean, your tax dollars pay for all of this. And we have, when it comes to, for example, access to technology, we've got a lovely program called the Access to Technology, ATT for short, for people who don't quite know how to use these mediums, for people who don't know how to use iPads, how to make email, oh my gosh, how to how to set up a hotspot, how to, all these things.
And just being able to get access to a hotspot.
We have those.
That's the thing, is that part of the access piece is giving people access to technological devices that they wouldn't have access to otherwise, such as iPads, Kindles, hotspots. We have
hotspots that you can check out with your library card and take home for 3 weeks. Oh, and by the way, we have iPads that you can check out with your library card and take home for 3 weeks. Oh, by the way, we have Kindle Fires that you can check out with your library card and take home for 3 weeks.
And if you don't know how to use those, we can help you learn.
And we have an ATT, an Access to Technology team that can sit down with you and show you how to use your hotspot, your iPad, and your Kindle Fire. And you know how much it costs? Absolutely nothing. This is a fun story. I had a phone call of a gentleman. He was so excited. And he's like, I heard you guys have hotspots for checkout. And I said, yes, sir, we do. And he said, and I heard you have iPads for checkout that I can take home. And I said, yes, sir, we do. And he's like, and it doesn't cost me anything. And I said, no, sir, it doesn't. And he was so excited. And I stopped. I said, well, after 3 weeks, you got to give it back, right? After 3 weeks, we would like it to come back.
Yeah, we do like it. We'd like to give it to someone else.
That's the kicker. We have all these wonderful things that you can come and you can utilize, and you can take them home and access your information however you want to. But please bring them back.
Yes, please. And please bring them back into state where other people can use them too.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, because these resources belong to the entire community, and we're just the hub that provides the access.
Very much so. And as someone very, very important and educated once said, to pour forth benefits for the common good is divine.
That's right.
So you want to have the common good get this. You want to be able to share with the rest of the community. And it's not just, technology is the one that we're kind of, pushing forth because that's what everybody pays attention to and that's what everybody gets excited about.
Well, and that's also one of the most costly areas of access. So the fact that we can provide that is so beneficial to the community. It does go back to the origins of libraries where those books were so expensive that just having the access to that book was so difficult. Now that's the hotspot. Now that's the iPad. That's the thing that it may be too cost prohibitive for an individual to be able to afford, or the internet access, paying a monthly fee like that. We can provide that for people because of the tax dollars that
we
help
are
sustain
doing
us.
now what we have historically done. We are
Yes.
providing our community with resources they would not have been able to access otherwise.
Mhm.
And that's what libraries started out as. That's what it was a whole point. Even when we look back at Benjamin Franklin and his subscription library, it was providing them, these select number of people, with something that they could not have had all by themselves.
Right.
I mean, it's expensive to buy books. I mean, they're about, we did this on our first episode of a random book. Any book is about $20.
Yep.
YA books, you'll get those for, $15 at cheap. That's the cheapest one. And if you want to read a new one, you would have to buy a new book.
Yeah.
If we didn't exist, if the library didn't exist. Okay, well, let's talk about this just as readers. Okay. I'm a reader. I love to read. If I lost my ability to read, you might as well take my ability to breathe. I'm so sorry. And other readers will completely understand it. And I don't read good things. I read trash, and it's lovely. And I have so much fun reading it. Mass, I love you so much. You write my crack, and I absolutely love it. But if I didn't have the library, it would be, over $20, over $20, over $20. Her series, A Thorn of Glass, has like 8 books in it. $20, $20, $20, $20. Court of Thorns and Roses, that's 5 books, $20.
Oh, and think about authors like Patterson.
Oh my gosh, what is he on, 38?
Yeah, I mean, there's the expense, but there's the space. Where are you going to put all those books? Like, we have giant buildings filled with books and don't know where we're going to put all those books and can't house all those books.
And even when you take away the space and you look at from an ebook point of view, which we do have, we have Libby. You can get your ebook fix just for free.
And Palace, which is a consortium. You get all the books there.
Yeah, and even then, you would still, and ebooks are cheaper, but you would still have to pay for every single one if we didn't have the free access here. And it boggles my mind that not as many people use it. Not as many people will come in and utilize the library, and it boggles my mind completely, because this is free. There's no cost whatsoever, and I think it goes back to, people aren't used to getting things for free.
Well, you're suspicious of things that don't cost. We used to say that when I was running a business in another lifetime, that if you undercharge someone, or you give them discount, or you give them a break,
it must not be as good.
It doesn't set right somewhere within them, and they become suspicious. And I think to some degree that is something that libraries suffer from, is that people don't understand this is paid for. This is it doesn't just, free isn't just free. It's not like the books just manifest out of thin air.
It's a wild book. That's
and
excellent.
suddenly you have a YA section, these things
sprouted overnight. Can't you tell?
Something grows on trees that ain't money, but it's books.
Yeah.
But it would be lovely. It would be lovely. But it's that idea that it is actually paid for. It does cost money. This does require maintenance by people who are skilled. And you don't have to be suspicious of it. You don't have to be thinking that, I don't know what they expect of me. We really don't. It's really here just for your benefit. It's really just here to provide access. We're not collecting data. In fact, quite the opposite. We protect people's privacy. We don't give reading lists just because someone wants to know what you're reading. That's not what we do.
No.
Unlike some private companies that do collect your data and then resell your data, and that we have a directive, the ALA and other things. We have a strict ethical guidelines
Mhm.
by which we operate in public libraries, and none of those things are part of our practices.
You know, I'm so happy that you brought that up because of that ability that we have to keep things, like to not share certain information about people and
Mhm.
what they're reading in their account. That's why if people sometimes they'll call here and they'll be like, "Hey, what do I have checked out?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'd be happy to check that. Why don't you give me your library card number?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't have that. Just look up by my name." I'm so sorry. I can't do that. Why not? Because of this. This is why. If that was you, I'm so sorry. But
Mhm.
this is why, because if it wasn't, I can't tell if that's you on the phone. You know, I can't reach over and be like, "Oh, Virginia, it's you. Let me go ahead and look that up." I can't. I'm so sorry. If you don't have your library card number, I can't release any information because that's a violation of your privacy.
Mhm.
You know, if it's some random Billy Job Bo that's calling and saying,
Mhm.
"Hey, why don't you get my name is Virginia and I want to know what I've got checked out." You know, you wouldn't want me to give him that information.
And
So,
and while we're not a credit card company, while we don't
no.
have access to your financial information, what we're protecting is your intellectual liberty, your ability to read what you want to explore any ideas that you find interesting
With no judgment.
with no judgment,
None.
and preserving your privacy so that we're like standing in the bulwark between you and any repercussions for whatever research you do. It's a very important function, and we take it extremely seriously.
I just think it's funny. I'm like, with no judgment, I'm over here reading smut with Faye in it. You know, I am the last person to judge your reading material.
No. I mean, and that's the thing too. We're all readers, so none of us are here. Those days of being like, "Oh, don't read the garbage." Those days
Oh,
are
the
long
novels, the
gone.
novels, the novels.
Yes, a song from a bygone era.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
decrying people's love of populist literature. It's like,
just
man,
read.
reading is just so good for you.
And so we do. The library brings a lot of services to the
Mm-hmm.
community, and we are happy. We are just thrilled to help you. If you have a resume that you need to write, we have
Well, and
people that
that's
help
part of
with
the
that.
community and cultural
Mm-hmm.
services that we provide, is helping with jobs, helping with
Mm-hmm.
job searches, providing, access to the internet so people can fill out job applications.
Very much so. I mean, and you can come in and use the computer. We have printing services. Over here at the library, it's 10 cents for black and white, 50 cents for color, cash
At
only.
Chico,
Sorry.
because some of the libraries don't offer color.
Oh, very true. Gridley does not offer color. It's black and
No,
white for Gridley. I forgot about that.
that's right.
Paradise offers color. Paradise and Oroville and Chico, I know
Mm-hmm.
because I'm in all three of those. Hi. Um, I don't know about Durham, but I know Gridley does
Yeah.
black and white only. We have so many things and so many services. And it's not even just for, higher education and to better my
Mm-hmm.
intellectual level. It's not even just for that. It's for entertainment. People also want to, get together. Oh, and they had checkers and they had chess. They want to get
Mm-hmm.
together and they want to do these things because the library is not just a place where you go and you get your Sarah J. Maas fix. It's where you go to be with your
Yeah.
community. It's where you go to connect.
And I recommend highly that you go to our library's website. I'll go ahead and the link will be in our
Mm-hmm.
description.
And I'd like to talk about a program real quick.
Yes, please.
For history buffs who are listening to this currently,
Yes.
we have a wonderful book club here at the Chico Library called the Historical Fiction Book Club. It's run by a fantastic library assistant. She is just amazing. And she'll pick these historical fiction novels and then she'll actually make supplement materials that's the real nonfiction things behind the novel. There's one, it was a Heavenly Earth grocery store, I think was the title.
Mm-hmm. Heaven and Earth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. She actually contacted the community that this was all based off of. She contacted their library. She contacted their librarian, and she's like, "Hey, I'm running a book club and we're reading this book. What can you give me about this actual instance?" And that librarian was like, "Well, my dear, I'm so happy you asked this question. Don't give me any spoilers on the books because I haven't read it. It's not my turn yet, but let me give you all this information." The wonderful thing about librarians, this is just wonderful,
Yeah.
is that when it comes to information, we're not gatekeepers.
No,
And the least
absolutely
bit,
not.
we want, when you come to us with a question, we want to give you the answer.
Mhm.
We want to give you the correct answer.
Mhm.
And Charity,
We don't just do research for you. We do it for ourselves and with
Yes.
each other.
Uh-huh.
And it's a thing.
We share information with each other. One of the main pieces of becoming a librarian is to inspire the new generation of librarians by
Yeah.
providing them with information, providing them with assistance. I know this because I'm trying to be a librarian right
Mhm.
now, and I've got a number of librarians, thank you, that are helping me in my journey up
Mhm.
that ladder. And
Yeah.
it's not even like, you know, in some positions where you're like, please help me, and then the person's pulling the ladder up behind them, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
It's not like that
No,
here.
mentorship is part of our set of
Mhm.
principles,
It's
and you know, helping develop the future leaders within
Mhm.
the library profession. It's
Mhm.
all part of it.
But yeah, I would, if you're a history buff, I would definitely come check out the Historical Fiction Book Club here at Chico. We give you a book. It's not to keep. You still have to give it back, like with everything else at the
Mhm.
library.
But we provide you.
We
the
provide
book.
you with the book, and you can read it, and then you come in, and she'll send you, if you give her your email, she'll send you all the information. It's a really great time, especially if you're into actual history. I
Yeah.
would say come and do it, and it's free, and you don't have to reserve. You just pop in. It's a wonderful
Yep,
program.
absolutely.
Mhm.
And real robust discussions
Mhm.
occur in the group too, surrounding the book and the period and everything like that. It's, if you're a historical fiction fan, it's a good time.
Mhm. Oh, very much so.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of Library-ish. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into what libraries are and why they matter so much.
Libraries are so much more than buildings filled with books. They're evolving institutions at the heart of every community. From their rich history to their evolving role as community hubs, libraries continue to inspire and empower.
So please visit your local library and support these vital community institutions. Get yourself a library card. It's your ticket to learning, connection, and so much more.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share Library-ish with your friends.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye!